I will start off with the sponsors, and hopefully that will give Erwin a time to get back from shul, to get home and get on the computer. Okay. Your sponsorships. Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Levish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah ben Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Hesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi. Friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dove. A month of learning sponsored by Dove Bodlander in memory of his father, Tzvi ben Yaakov Yitzchak, his mother, Bela Devasha Bas Harav Dov Ber, his father-in-law, Yehuda Tzvi ben David Nachum, and his mother-in-law, Alta Chaya Bas Harav Avram Yosef. Also Mel and Haran Haller in memory of his father, Avram ben Ze'ev. A week of learning by Michael and Sharon Glass in memory of his mother, Rivka Yita Bas Yitzchak HaKohen, as well as a week of learning by Carol Sanborn and family in honor of Josh's special birthday. Okay, for those who don't know, just look at Pirkei Avot, Shmonim Legavura. Okay. Day of learning sponsored today by Jack and Sandy Friedman in memory of his father, Yosef ben Yaakov. And the Shamas have an Aliyah, Kranka Rafia, Velta Yashir, Rishai Matliya, and the Chol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shtiel. Okay. All right. So we got up to the new Mishnah on Lamed Chet Amud Aleph. That should be our starting point, right?
Okay.
So where are we moving, so to speak? It's a question of a discussion of Eruv, and particularly Eruv Tchumim, okay? Well, this Mishnah is going to bring us into a new area, and in doing so, over the next Amudim, I was asked if we were going to actually have any kind of shir on Rosh Hashanah. I don't think it's going to work out. I told the person who asked, I will try to cover over the next couple days a little bit of that material, because that meant Shabbos and Sunday that we would miss out. Meanwhile, Friday, we need to discuss, give some thought, if you would, what time we might be able to go on Friday, because we've got not only the Shlicha starting at 7, but we got Hatarat Nadarim afterwards. So I'm not sure if the 8:30 time frame will exactly work. Okay. In any case, if we look at our new Mishnah, okay, we're now going to deal with issues of Yom Tov and Shabbat together. Okay, we have two options as we go into this Mishnah. One would be that Yom Tov would be a one-day Yom Tov, as was done in Eretz Yisrael back in those days, okay, in general, and so that's Friday, and the next day is Shabbat. Or we have a reverse situation. Shabbat and Yom Tov is on Sunday.
Right.
So we have to just sort of consider the following. If Yom Tov is Sunday, then it's less problematic. I could still bring my Eruv on Friday afternoon, set it up for Shabbos, and can I or can't I use that same Eruv for Yom Tov. Okay? Particularly if I don't eat the entire foodstuffs. Okay? However, if my Yom Tov is Friday and then Shabbos is, of course, the next day, does that imply that I must absolutely bring my foodstuffs for the Eruv on Thursday afternoon? And if so, what do I do in order to accommodate having an Eruv both Friday and still also for Shabbos? So having presented that consideration, I think we'll go right into the text. Matnitin, our Mishnah teaches, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, Yom Tov hasamuch l'Shabbat, a Yom Tov, right, that is close and falls close to the Shabbos, bein milfaneha ubein mil'achareha, whether it is before on Friday or afterwards on, let's say, Sunday, ma'arev adam shnei eruvin. Rabbi Eliezer says the person must arrange, right, for two eruvs. Okay? Not only that, but the question is where, right? Are they, right? If he wants to do two separate locations, then he needs an eruv in each location. V'omer, and then the person might say, Eruvei b'rishon lemizrach, u'v'sheni lema'arav. Okay, my eruv for the first occasion, I'll say for the moment, is in the east, and for the second occasion in the west. Right? What happens then? Right? The Gemara then continues, or he might say, V'rishon lema'arav u'v'sheni lemizrach. The first occasion would be in the west, and the second occasion in the east. Eruvei b'rishon, or again he might say, my eruv for the first day, okay, u'b'sheni ki b'nei iri, and the second day I won't need that eruv. I will be like any fellow citizen of my location, my town.
Is that an eruv?
Right? Or eruvei b'sheni u'b'rishon ki b'nei iri, or he might reverse it and say, on the second day, okay, I'll need that eruv for Shabbos or whatever on the second occasion, but on the first occasion, I'll be like people of my community, my town. The Chachamim omrim, but the sages, however, are going to say, O me'arev leruach echat, O eino me'arev kol ikar. He may only establish, let's say, his eruv in one direction, or he cannot do any kind of eruv whatsoever. Or he might say, ma'arev l'sheni yamim, or I make this eruv for both days. Eino ma'arev kol ikar, or he's not able to make an eruv whatsoever. Ketzad ya'aseh, now asks the Mishnah, what is the person to do? Okay? And now the Mishnah continues, Molicho b'rishon, he brings it, okay, let's say the foodstuffs, okay, before the first day, in other words, on the eve of the first day, right? So if the holiday is on Friday, implying he would have to bring it Thursday afternoon. Okay? Umachshich alav, okay, and he has to stay there, right, until it's dark. V'not lo, and then he takes his foodstuffs, ubalo, and then he can come back, okay? Or we can say he can go elsewhere. B'sheni, for the second day, machshich halav, he has to come back there, okay, and wait till it gets dark. Ve'ochlo uvalo, and there he eats his eruv, the foodstuffs, and then he can go on to the next, let's say 2,000 amma, the next tchum. V'nimtza mishtaker b'halichato, okay, u'mishtaker b'eruvo, okay, and we find here, right, u'mistaker sachar, he benefits himself, okay, in his going, and he benefits himself through his eruv, okay, by the food of his eruv. Nochal b'rishon, says, however, the Mishnah, if he eats it on his first day, eruvo l'rishon, then his eruv seems only applicable for the first day, first occasion. Ve'ein eruvo l'sheni, and his eruv does not seem to be usable for the second occasion. Amar lehen Rabbi Eliezer. So now Rabbi Eliezer responds to the rabbi's view. Umodim atem li shehen shtei kedushot. But don't you acknowledge, okay, to me, that these occasions, one is Shabbat, one is Yom Tov, they are separate occasions of sanctity, separate periods of holiness. So now we continue with the Gemara. So the Gemara says the rabbis pointed out that it had to be in one direction, okay, to one side of town, so to speak. The Ruach Echat, Ma'inihu. Okay, what does that mean in one direction? L'shnei yamim. Okay, for both days, is that what we're talking about? L'shnei yamim ma'inai. For both days, what are we talking about? What does it mean? The Ruach Echat, in one direction, Hainu Kamaita. Okay, isn't that simply imply that really refers to the first occasion, right? Hachi ka'amre le Rabbanan, the Rabbi Eliezer. This is what the sages actually said to Rabbi Eliezer. Iyata modeh she'ein ma'arvin liyom echad chetzio letzafon v'chetzio ledaron. Don't you acknowledge, okay, that we cannot make an eruv such that on one day, okay, you can go to the north halfway or go to the south halfway, right? Amar lahen. So he responded to them, Aval kashem she'en ma'arvin liyom echad, chetzio ledarom v'chetzio letzafon. The same way, for a single day, I'm going to say it there, okay, for one day, you cannot make your eruv so that you can go halfway to the north and halfway to the south. Kach ein ma'arvin l'shnei yamin yom echad l'mizrach v'yom echad l'ma'arav. So argues Rabbi Eliezer. So likewise, when you make an eruvin for 2 days, right, you can't go one day to the east and one day to the west. But Rabbi Eliezer says, Hatam Kedusha Achat. There, in the example you gave, there was one day, a single sanctity. Hachashtei Kedushot. But here, okay, we're arguing that there are 2 days, 2 different separate sanctities. Amar lehen Rabbi Eliezer. Okay? And so Rabbi Eliezer then said to the sages, Iatem modim, don't you acknowledge, she'im irev biraglav biyom rishon, that if he actually went there and established his eruv there through his presence in that location, right? Ma'arev biraglav biyom rishon, v'nochal eruvo biyom rishon, that he can make with his presence, okay, a eruv on the biyom. I'm sorry. If he made with his presence on the first day, Ma'arei b'raglav b'yom sheni. He can make on the second day with his presence an eruv by his presence. Nochal, right? He can eat eruvo b'yom rishon. Eat then his foodstuffs for the eruv on the first day. Ein yotzei alav b'yom rishon. I'm sorry, Ein yotzei alav b'yom sheni. That he cannot then go out on the second day. Right? Amrulo. So they said to him, Aval, okay, that may be true. Ha l'ayeh shnei kedushotem. Okay, but therefore they ask, okay, but surely, okay, are you still going to be dealing with two different sanctities? The Rabbanan, but according to the rabbis, Svuke misvekelaho. Okay? The rabbis are not sure whether we consider these two separate sanctities or not. V'hacha l'chumra, v'hacha l'chumra. And here we're saying one is for stringency, and the other is going to also be for stringency. Okay? Maybe we're going to say, right, that according to the rabbis, we prohibit or don't permit two separate eruvin for the two separate days because they're considered a single period of kedusha. Okay, or we might say also that we could be stringent, okay, because if he made it with his presence in one day, it's not enough to make it another location simply with foodstuffs to be able to go in a different direction. Amrulo, the Rabbi Eliezer. And so then what happens? Right? We continue that they said to Rabbi Eliezer, Ian tamodeh, right? Don't you acknowledge she'ein ma'arvin betchila miyom tov l'shabbat, that you cannot make preparations of an eruv, okay, on Yom Tov for Shabbat, right? Amar lehen, he says to them, Aval, sure, indeed, okay. Ha la'ayeh kedusha achati, but where do you base this on to say that there's only a single holiness? If you've got 2 days, Rabbi Eliezer is holding two separate occasions, all right, one Yom Tov, one Shabbat, aren't they separate holinesses, so to speak? The Rabbi Eliezer hatam mishum hachana, and perhaps the reason Rabbi Eliezer says there that it doesn't work is because you can't prepare the eruv on Yom Tov for Shabbat. Okay, so that could be his reason, that he would say there in that situation, okay, right? Since you can't prepare it on Yom Tov for Shabbat, that's why it would be forbidden, okay, to do it that way, okay, in the way the rabbis were suggesting. Okay, we now come to a new Braita, right? And the new Braita, okay, still is going to deal with this similar problem. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Braita, Irev beraglav biyom rishon. He made his eruv through his going there, through his presence for the first day, first occasion. Ma'arev beraglav biyom sheni. And he made his eruv through his presence, okay, by going there for the second day. Now, chal eruvo biyom rishon. If we say that in this case he ate, right, his eruv from the foodstuffs that he had put there on the first day, ein yotzei alav biyom sheni. We say that he cannot leave, okay, and utilize on the second day that eruv, He can't leave the city. Divrei Rebbe. That is the view of Rebbe. Okay? Rebbe Yehuda Omer. But Rabbi Yehuda, however, is going to say as follows, Hare zeh chamar gamal, that this individual is unfortunately in a situation like a camel driver or a donkey driver. Namely, he doesn't know in what direction to go, because a camel driver has to drive the animal in one means, and the donkey driver has to push the animal in a different means. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Yishmael ben Osha, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omrim, they, however, the two of them, say the following. Irev beraglav berishon. If he made an error of using by his presence on the first occasion, ein ma'arev beraglav b'sheni. Okay? That he does not need, okay, to make an eruv with his presence for the second day, second occasion. Nochal eruvo biyom rishon. If he's eaten his eruv on the first day, yotzei alav b'sheni. He may rely on that and leave and use the eruv to go in a different direction on the second occasion, second day. Amar Rav, says Rav halacha ke'arba zikenim halalu. Rav says that it is like the law is like the following four sages. Va'aliba de Rabbi Eliezer. Okay? And it follows the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The Amar Shtei Kedushotein. That says that in this situation, they are two separate sanctities. Ve'elu hein arbas kenim, and these are the four sages. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is one. Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka is two. Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Shimon is three. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda is four. Stimata. And he is the one, Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, is the one we usually cite, okay, as the anonymous Tana. What do we mean by anonymous Tana? Okay, and in other words, oftentimes he is recited as a stam in a text, just as we often found Rabbi Meir say is a stam. V'ikeda amre. And there are those, however, who say this is how it was established. Chad minayhu, Rabbi Eliezer. One of them was Rabbi Elazar. Umafik Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda stimataha. And remove Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda stimataha. The Gemara now is going to raise a question here. Okay? The following. Vaha Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. But here, wasn't it Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the Rabbi Yishmael bar Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, the two of them? Ipcha shma'inin laho. It was the opposite.
On the top, right?
Ipuch. So reverse it, says the Gemara. Ihachi hainu Rebbe. If we reverse it, then we have the same opinion that Rebbe gave before. Ema. So therefore, says the Gemara, right? I have to say perhaps the following, right? V'chein amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel v'chulei. And likewise said Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, okay? And therefore that their statement was not a challenge to Rebbe, but a support to Rebbe. V'lechshov nami Rebbe. And so therefore this comes also, okay, to include the view of Rebbe. Rebbe tanela velo savarla. However, the Gemara tells us Rebbe taught it, but this wasn't his opinion. He didn't agree with it. Rabbanan nami tanu la velo savre la. The rabbis also taught it. Okay? In other words, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka also taught it, but they did not agree with it themselves. Okay? So the Gemara now says, Rav Gamra Gamirla. Okay? But Rav had received a tradition. Ki nach nafshe de Rav Huna. And when we learn now that Rav Huna passed away, right? What happened? Ayil Rav Chista, the Mirmar de Rav Adarav. Rav Chista then, what did he wanted to do? Right? He wanted to point out that there seems here to be a contradiction between the statement, one statement of Rav and another statement of Rav. Mi amar Rav halacha ka'arba zakenim. Did Rav really say that the law was like these four sages, these four elders? Va'aliba de Rabbi Eliezer, and also based on the perspective, the academy of Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar Shteik du Shoten, that these days have two separate sanctities. Did he follow this opinion? Vaha itmar, but here, wasn't it said, right? Shabbat v'Yom Tov, in regards to these two occasions. Rav Amar nolda bazeh, asura bazeh, that if we had a situation where something was, let's say, born or created on one day, it was forbidden on the next day, okay? Which implies, right, in this case, an egg, for example, okay, which implies that there's only the same Kedusha. Amar Rava, says Rava, Hatam Mishum Hachana. Now there, okay, we said you can't do something with it because it's a question of preparation. The egg, okay, was not prepared. It wasn't, let's say, available, okay, beforehand. The Tanya, as was taught elsewhere in another Braita, V'haya b'yom hashishi v'hechinu, okay, that it was on the sixth day and it was prepared for Yom Tov. Chol machin l'Shabbat. On a non-holiday, one can prepare for Shabbat. V'chol machin l'Yom Tov. And in a non-holiday, one can prepare for Yom Tov. Ve'ein Yom Tov mechin l'Shabbat. And we cannot on a Yom Tov prepare for Shabbat. Ve'ein Shabbat mechina l'Yom Tov. And we cannot on Shabbat prepare for a Yom Tov. Okay? So that's the case. All right? Now, what happens? Gemara continues, and Abai challenges. Amar le Abai, elahad etznan, ketzad hu oseh. Okay, but what about the fact that our Mishnah, excuse me, specifically says, how does he go about doing this? Molicho barishon, that he brings it on the first occasion, umachshich alav v'not lo, and he stays there till it's dark, and then he takes it. Ubalo b'sheni, okay, and he comes then on the second day, occasion, machshich alav, he waits there till it's dark, ve'ochlo, and eats the food stuff, uvalo, and then he can go ahead, whatever additional 2,000 amah he wants, okay? Kamachim Yom Tov l'Shabbat. Doesn't that seem to imply that it's permissible to prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbat?
Yes.
Amar le Rava. So Rava responds to him and says, Misvarat sof hayom koneh eruv. Are you of the opinion that it is the end of the day by when we acquire the eruv? Okay, in other words, the very bein hashmashot, let's say. Okay, it's the end of twilight, and therefore that's when Shabbat starts. Tchilat hayom koneh eruv. It's the beginning of the day. In other words, the beginning of the twilight period that we acquire, establish that the eruv. Shabbat mechina la'atzma. And Shabbat then prepares for itself, in a sense. The Shabbat then, by doing so, okay, that's when we start. Okay? Now, Abaye is not satisfied, right? And Abaye is going to try to make another challenge. Ella, says Rabba, okay? We're now going to deal with some foodstuffs, some flasks, right? Ella me'ata ya'arvu belugin. Okay? So let's say that he can make an eruv using flasks of wine, right? And that they're also fit, right, for consumption. Ba'inan su'udah ru'uyami ba'od yom. Why? Rava says, but don't we need the foodstuffs for the eruv such that it can be available and ready as if it were from daylight the previous day, vileka, and we don't have it that way then. Elaha, Datnan. Okay? But rather here, okay, this is what we teach in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer, Yom Tov hasamuch l'Shabbat, a Yom Tov that is close to Shabbat, bein milfanahu bein la'achareha, whether it's before on Friday or afterwards on Sunday, me'arev adam shnei eruvin. A person must prepare two different eruvin, two different eruvs. Ha ba'inin su'udah haru'uya mi ba'od yom veleka. But the Gemara says, wait a second, here don't we still say that we need a meal that is fitting from the initial day. In other words, the day it was prepared, and we don't have it. In other words, that bread that's, so to speak, prepared on Thursday afternoon, is it really going to last and be viable Saturday afternoon? Misvarat de manachle besof alpayim ama lekan, besof alpayim ama lekan. Okay, so he challenges him, and he says, do you think it's possible that Rabbi Eliezer is referring to a situation where he's put one eruv, 2,000 amma on one location, and then later 2,000 amma at another end, in another direction, another location? No, he says. De manach le besof elef amma. No, we're talking, Rabbi Eliezer, in terms of a situation where he placed it at the end of 1,000 amma here, ubesof elef amma lekan, and at the end of 1,000 amma in the other opposite location. Elaha, the amma Rav Yehuda, but rather here, okay, when Rav Yehuda says the example, right? Irev beraglav yom rishon, where he made this eruv through his presence on the first day. Ma'arev beraglav yom sheni, and he made his eruv through his presence on the second day. Irev bapat b'yom rishon. If he made his eruv using bread on the first day, ma'arev bapat b'yom sheni, he may make his Eruv on the second day using bread. Ha ka mechin miyom tov l'Shabbat. Isn't this still a kind of preparing on Yom Tov for Shabbat? Okay. Amar le. So he said to him, Misvarat da azil va'amar midi. Okay. Okay. Namely, do you think that he's going to go, okay, to that location physically and still have to say something, this basket, this bread, this thing is going to be my Eruv? The azil v'shatik v'yativ. No, he went, okay, and he was silent, and he sat there, stood there, whatever. In other words, by his mere presence, he was able to designate that location for Eruv. And he didn't have to say anything. Kiman ki Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Like the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Damar, who says, Chaftzi hefker, konin shvita. Right? That he holds that the ownerless objects can have acquire residence
with silence.
Right? Through silence. Afilu tema rabbanan. But wait a second, you can even say that that's not just the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, it may also be the view of the rabbis. Ad kan lo plige rabbanan alei de Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, ela biyashan. That the rabbis only disagreed with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, okay, in the situation, okay, where the person was sleeping. De lo matze amar. Why? Because then he can't say anything. He can't make a declaration that that location is going to be his Eruv. Aval b'ni or. But if the person is awake, the ibai lememar, okay, if it's necessary for him to say something, matze amar, then certainly he's capable of making a statement. Afal gav de lo amar, keman de amar dami. And we say, even though he may not have orally, verbally, out loud said something, a declaration, it's as if
he did.
By his presence, he's as if he has said something. And that's what we compare it.
Wow.
Amar le, Rava bar Rav Chanan la Abaye. So now Rava bar Rav Chanan says to Abaye, Ihava shamia le lamar. Okay, if Rava, our master, okay, would have heard what was said in this Braita, Hadetanya lo yehelech adam l'sof sadehu leida mahit tzricha. Okay, it's possible that he would have said that a person is not permitted to go out to the edge of his field. In other words, leida mahi tzricha, in order to check out, okay, what kind of work ultimately is needed. Kiyotsebo, okay? And in a similar way, all right, let's go over a little bit, right? Lo yitayel adam el petach medina, kadeshi kanes l'merchatz miyad. And likewise, a person cannot go out to the gate of the city, opening of the city here, in order so that he can be the, so to speak, first one into the community bathhouse immediately. Hadarbe, okay? He perhaps would have retracted that statement. So the Gemara says, Velohi, that's not the case. Shamale velo hadarbe. No, he learned that, but he did not detract, right? Retract it. Hatam muchacha milta. Why? Because there, okay, it's very evident. It's very clear. We have clear proof that if the fella went out there, Okay, all right, put his Eruv out there so he could go to the end of his field to check it out, what kind of work is going to be needed. That's still almost like preparing on Shabbat for the next occasion, right? Hacha, but here regarding Eruv, lav muchacha miltahi. We don't have a clear case of any proof, okay? And what we might say is, eat surba merabananhu. If he was a rabbinical student, a young student, and he goes out walking there, amrin shma'ata meshachte. Maybe he was so focused on his lessons that he didn't realize he was going so far out. V'i'am ha'aretzu. And if we're saying that the person is a common person, amrina, we might say, chamra irkasle, that maybe his donkey got lost, right? And he's out looking for his lost animal.
Oh.
Okay? So we're going to stop here, all right? And we'll pick up there, okay? Tomorrow, right? And include what we can, all right? So everybody stay well.
Thank you very much, and you too. We appreciate
And we'll do what we can. What's interesting, just to suggest, as we get into the next couple of amudim of the Gemara, it has an interesting tie-in ultimately to Rosh Hashanah. Okay?
right.
All right.
Okay, yeah, no coincidences. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Take care.
And you'll let us know tomorrow about Friday, please. Thank
Yeah.
you. Everyone have a good
Yeah.
Simatova. You and the family.
That's it. That's what it is. Very good. I'm glad you got it.
Be
To
well.
you too, to your whole family.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good. Right. Mahachatima Tova.
Awesome.